Hi YouTubers, welcome back to Hamilton Hollow Homestead. Today we planted some lettuce seeds. I know it's December and not all of us are planting seeds this time of year. I'm going to leave them here by my south facing window and hope they sprout and I get some greens. I wanted them to be frost hardy. When it's time to move these plants outside, I'm hoping that they'll be hardy enough to be able to put into the greenhouse without too much trouble, so I can make room for onions in January. Our hardiness zone is 6A, 5B, kind of in the middle there. We get our first frost in October, and our last frost doesn't come until May. So planting seeds in December is a little bit odd, but I really wanted to have some fresh vegetables in the house. I wanted some fresh leafy greens that I didn't have to buy in the store. So I'm growing some lettuce, I'm growing some kale, hopefully, and I hope that you will come along for the journey. I also hope that you are spending some time with your cherished loved ones at this time of year. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe.
So the first thing I had to do was prepare my soil. I wanted to sterilize it with boiling water to make sure to kill all of the mold and spores that might be in this soil that has been in my basement, for a little while. So I'm filling up my tub that I use for sterilizing my soil. I fill it about 2/3 of the way to the handles there because that's how much water I'm going to use. I'm going to use about 1.5 gallons of boiling water into this soil. Here I am just watching the pot, waiting for the water to boil. We all know that a watched pot takes a lot longer to boil. So I'm going to go away and do something else. So now my water is boiling and I have it all set up in my kitchen. I have my soil here waiting to have boiling water dumped on it, and all of my seed starting mix will be sterilized for use. So I actually didn't have the camera on to show you when I dumped the water on the soil. But you can see how hot it is and steamy, and I'm stirring it up and making sure that all of the soil is touched and sanitized by the boiling hot water. I'm getting a little facial at the same time. So I'm going to let this sit here for a couple hours with the lid on and let the soil get steamed and sterilized and cool off so that I can put it in my trays. There was one fail that I did here where I just killed all the nutrients out of all of this soil, and I didn't put it back before I made up my trays. So that was one thing that I would do over, or I will do over the next time I do this. But this is a few hours later and my soil's all nice and cooled down. Now I have to get my trays ready, and these trays have not been used before, but they have been sitting in the basement collecting dust and mold spores. So I'm taking some hot water in my big tub and I'm putting about 2/3 cup of just some generic bleach that I had on hand, and I'm dumping it into my water and giving a little mix. And this is what I'm going to put my trays in. I'm just going to dunk them down and sterilize them in the bleach water to make sure that they don't have anything on them. And to protect my hands, I'm going to wear my rubber gloves because my hands get dried out enough. And there's 2 different kinds of trays that I'm using. I am using some trays that have holes in the bottom, and then I've got some trays that don't have any holes in the bottom because I am doing this inside my house and I don't want to have water everywhere. So these are the trays where the soil will go in, and the trays without holes will go underneath to hold all the water for watering. And I'm going to try to bottom water these plants so I could do it more gently. So I'm just dunking these in, and in my head I'm saying my alphabet, so I'm leaving them in there leave them into the bleach water for long enough for the bleach to do its thing and sterilize these trays. But this is how I did it. I'm not going to bore you with showing all of them. So I put down this newspaper, but it didn't do me a whole lot of good because all the dirt went around it anyway. Here was the other thing that I did that I wasn't really thinking. Nobody recommended this to me, but I thought it would be a good idea if I put like a layer of stones under my tray with holes, making the water deeper under that tray. I was thinking that that would allow the roots to go deeper, but when they're seedlings, it doesn't matter. So I did eventually just take those out later because they weren't doing any good. So here I'm just filling up my trays, just filling them up with the soil that is all sterilized. It's still maybe a little bit warm in the middle. So I'm smoothing them out, making them even, and picking out the twigs and pieces of, uh, there aren't any rocks, but there's pieces of wood and root that needs to be taken out so that it doesn't obstruct the seedlings. In the end, I used up all of the soil in my bin to fill the 3 trays that I had. I know that lettuce needs a lot of water. Looking back at this, I probably didn't need this much water. I haven't planted any seeds yet, but lettuce seeds are very small, so you don't want to water your soil after you plant them because they'll just wash everywhere. So I'm making sure that all of my trays are well watered before I plant my seeds. Again, this is probably a little too much water. So I know you can't really see what I'm doing here, but I'm just testing the water, or testing the soil rather, to see if it has enough water. I wanted to make sure that it had enough moisture in it that it was going to sprout the seeds without adding too much. And again, in hindsight, I should have added some fish emulsion or some kind of nutrients to that water before I added it to the soil to give those seeds a better chance at the beginning. Okay, now the fun part. We're planting kale, scarlet kale. We're also planting the garnet rose leaf lettuce. And lastly, we're planting the Paris Island Cos lettuce. All of these are Baker Creek seeds. So the first seeds that I did were the kale seeds. I'd already planted some of them at this point, but I forgot to turn the camera on, so I'm just showing you the kale seeds. Kale are actually brassica, so the seeds look a lot like a cauliflower seed or a broccoli seed. They're small, round seeds. So what I'm doing is just sort of sprinkling the seeds on top of the soil. They're supposed to be planted at a 1/4 inch depth, so I'm using my little paintbrush that I have a measuring tool at the bottom. I just put a Sharpie line where it needed to go, and I'm just pushing the seeds into the soil to a 1/4 inch depth. And then after I felt like I got most of them into the soil, I just wanted to pat it down to make sure if there were any that I missed that they had contact with the moist soil as well. And then I just did the same procedure with the Paris Island Koss lettuce seeds. These seeds look like grass seed. I know it's a little blurry, but it does look like grass seed that you might find in overgrown grass out in your yard. Um, so they're very small and very light. They can get washed away really easily. So whenever you're planting lettuce seeds, it's just best to do it into moist soil rather than putting it into dry soil and then trying to water afterward. Of course, this is not the only way you can plant lettuce seeds. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it. You can do it any way that you want to, as long as it works. I was trying to get you a close-up shot of what I was doing with the lettuce seeds, just pushing them into the soil a little bit. It's still kind of blurry, but I hope you can see the white little specks that you see is just some vermiculite or some perlite that's in the soil, and that it helps to keep the soil aerated and loose, but it does float to the top whenever you add water. So that's why it's all floating to the top. You probably can't tell the difference in this video between the vermiculite and the seeds. And again, here's where you can tell there's too much water in there. But I'm just pushing it down, making sure that all of the lettuce seeds has contact with the soil.
Hey, I just want to take this minute to remind you that liking my videos and subscribing to my channel helps us. So please take just a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much.
And these were the garnet rose lettuce seeds, the last ones that we did. They're very small as well, even smaller than the Paris Island Koss. And I'm just sprinkling them around. I don't mind if I get extra sprouts. I really don't, because I can thin them out, or I can eat them when they're young and they'll still be good. So I'm overseeding intentionally, just to make sure that I'll have enough that I'll be able to thin. And by the way, this is all an experiment. I've never done lettuce in my window before. So this is just an experiment, as always. After a while, I just laid my paintbrush on its side and was going around the edge of the tray with the side of it. It looks like a fancy pie crust. And here again, I'm just pushing the soil, noticing how much water is in it, making sure all the seeds have contact with the moist soil. And it didn't take me long to realize that having these trays just on a coffee table by my south-facing window was not going to be enough light to have fresh greens to eat. These little sprouts came out very leggy. They were reaching for the light. So I got out these little small LED grow lights that I had, and then I clipped those onto the coffee table. And this is the result after that. There is not much going on over here. So I wasn't satisfied and I added some more lights. I have these grow lights in the basement where I have started seeds before. I attached it to this photograph background holder. And then I got everything as low as I could. This wasn't good enough either. I didn't feel that this was good enough either. And these, the stands that I was using could go to 7 or 8 feet tall. So in addition to this one grow light, in the end I brought up a second grow light, brought them all the way up and put these trays on the shelves where I usually keep my house plants. So not only are they now closer to the sun on the south-facing windows, they're higher, so they get more natural light from the windows, but now they have 2 of the 4-foot grow lights and that small LED light, and I'm going to show you that setup in just a minute. So this is basically what my setup looks like now. I've got my 3 trays of lettuce. Here is the Paris Island Coffs. Those had the most sprouts so far. Now, these seeds are not supposed to sprout for 7 to 10 days, and it's not even a week yet. So these shouldn't even be sprouting yet. But, you know, they're heirloom seeds from Baker Creek, so of course they're going to be pretty productive. So I'm not worried about my mistakes now. Again, it's all an experiment. Today is December 15th. I've removed those extra stones, and so that the soil, and I've removed the extra water so that the soil can sort of dry out. And then the last thing I'm going to put on this video is the footage that I shot today to show you where the sprouts are now. And I hope you come back later to find out more updates about our lettuce and whether or not we're eating them. So there you have it. That is my lettuce seed sprouting story. Please check back with us later on to see if the seeds that haven't sprouted yet have sprouted and grown with enough light. Maybe we're eating them by the time you're watching this. Who knows? But enjoy this last little bit and take this time to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks and take care. Happy holidays.